Well, welcome back to another episode of the Profit Minded Business Podcast, where we come together to share stories of success, to understand pitfalls that we can avoid in the future if we just listen to one another. So as small business advocates, we've got Steve Ike here from Auxilium Associates, and we have as a co-host our great Lynn Spencer from Killingsworth Spencer CPA. And one of the things that we do together is we realize that small business owners really oftentimes suffer silently. We all wear many hats, and we have to do a lot of different things during the day that should be delegated, but we just don't. We can't sometimes. And one of the reasons why it was so special to have Stephen come on is you've heard me talk about Auxilium Associates as how I fit into the overall picture from the financial side. But I wanted you to hear from Steve from fractional operations, team and talent, sales and marketing, really understanding the fractional model. Because small business owners wear so many hats, it's difficult to begin that delegation process. Steve, before you jump into that subject, which I think is so critical for everyone to understand, tell us a little bit about your background and how you wound up doing what you're doing now.
Okay, great question. And kind of looking through my background, started out during college actually working with a couple of startups, both in home services and retail and restaurant, both with a couple of franchises and a couple just friends getting together and starting small businesses and kind of learning that there's value in hard work and things that come through. After college, jumped into the advertising industry for a couple of years, and then that evolved very quickly into working for a technology service provider and consulting firm that did accounting software for small business. Grew through that, moved to the big city, and kind of the early part of the stage of getting into that, and worked through the technology sector for several large Fortune 500 companies in the software side, and working through both sales, advising, and consulting in there. And then about 10 years ago, jumped into getting back into small business and working around consulting and a managing consultant for a small business group. Through that evolution in time, Pete McBath, one of the other founders, and I started talking about, what is that need? There's some gap out there in consulting because everybody likes to go after the larger companies or go after the big brand names and work with some of the larger folks in a true and traditional consulting model. We started to look at what's missing, what's the gap. Mm-hmm. And in that gap was, for small business owners, you mentioned it well, they live on an island and they wear every hat and they've got the vision, but they get sucked into the day-to-day. So Pete and I started talking about how can we address that and how can we be a little bit different and entrepreneurial to come and take the experience that he had working in technology and consulting and working in operations and my background in strategy and execution to combine that. So we said, they're coaches, they're consultants, and then this gap of what about a fractional team member to come in and work for that small business owner as kind of this hybrid general manager working with operations experience, financial experience, sales and marketing experience, team and talent experience, and then as you know, the financial underpinnings that really drive everything for the business. So we decided a while back to come together and form this group and look at it from a fractional standpoint, which really brings into mind what is fractional. And it really means that we're working as a part-time employee for that small business owner.
But the way I understand it, and obviously I'm as part of the team, I get it, but for those that are listening, what you're really talking about is helping the business owner, the small business owner, bring in folks that have a high level of experience. I mean, we're talking about you guys that have decades of experience in operations, in sales and marketing, and in execution, that for them to actually bring someone in at that level would cost what?
Well, you think about it. If they were to hire someone to do operations, someone to do finance, someone to do sales and marketing, and someone to do human resources and do it at the level that they required, they would actually be hiring 3 or 4 people.
What kind of a rate would that be?
That could be between $250,000 and $1 million, which no small business owner has.
It's just there's no way.
There's no way to be able to affordably execute on that and bring that into their business.
So the model then is to deal with that problem. They in order to really break through. I call it no man's land, right? That $1 million to $10 million zone, and even really branching into the $20 million range. It's kind of this no man's land of trying to hire the right people, finding the right marketing strategy, and creating this machine to break through. So in that gap is when they start to try to figure out, how do I bring in and execute on a great strategy?
Right.
And it's that. Tell me about that story.
You bring two things in. First is execution.
Right.
Being able to come up with the idea and say, how's this going to apply? And looking at it from the generalist standpoint of most small business owners are very good at what they do, and they had a vision. They started their business. They grew their business, but they understand their role in the business. You brought up they wear multiple hats.
Right.
And this idea of wearing multiple hats, they end up getting pulled back from what they do best. So if you can bring a resource team in as an aggregate or a hybrid or fractional, whatever you want to call it, it's really bringing in resources that have the decades of experience. They can work with and for that small business owner to figure out, where are we? Where do we want to go? How is my time best spent as the owner and visionary of the business?
Right.
And how can I start to free myself up from the day-to-day chaos, conversation of
Right.
all of those things that I must accomplish and must do. Bringing in someone who's tried, true, and trusted to come in and work for you, to take those on, take those items off your plate, and free you up to be the visionary of the strategy. And with one that was shared the other day is, I really enjoy being the chief salesperson of my company, going out and working with our clients and living with them in their day-to-day. Bringing us in kind of frees him up to go back and do what he does best,
right.
and not take the execution of trying to do everything for everybody all the time,
right,
which is exhausting.
Lynn.
You think about, I would love to have a little bit more time to do what I love doing,
right,
to bring the passion back into what I do every day.
Well, it's so easy to get wrapped up in working in the business. So it's a lot of ways to go about working on the business, whether it's taking one day out of the week to do it or whatever the case is. But the bottom line is there's all these things that require us to have to get in. And it sounds like the fractional team is a great idea to solve that problem. Lynn, you work with small business owners. As a CPA group, you must be intimate with a lot of hearing from them as far as what they have to do to get the job done. Can you share any insights on what you've heard here? And of course, you and I have talked about it a lot within even my role with Killingsworth Spencer and how we all kind of work together. But share a little bit about what you've seen in the multi-wearing hats versus like a fractional help.
Yeah, I want to go back to how we met. I had heard about you through the grapevine, and I think when I reached out to you, you were thinking, oh, Killingsworth Spencer wants a fractional CFO. And I'm like, no, I'm the CFO. We have a lot of clients that need fractional CFO. So that was the relationship I was hoping to start with you, and that has been a great relationship. And as you know, you've worked with a lot of our clients and helped them out greatly. And some of our clients will let us know that they need it, but sometimes they don't because they don't know how to voice it. But we can see it. We can see it in the numbers. We can see it in how difficult it is to get a hold of them. And just for something so simple, but it'll take days because, they're 12, 14-hour days, day upon day. And so meeting you was really important to have you as an asset to our firm to help our clients out. So
it's frustrating. I mean, as business owners, we struggle with a lot of issues, and sometimes we don't always know what we don't know. And so when I started doing what I was doing as a fractional CFO and doing more on the focus on the financials, what I found was, number one, I couldn't do everything for the business, even though I have knowledge in other areas. But what would happen to me oftentimes is that I would realize that even bringing me in as a fractional was limiting because I had no control over the top line in my role. So I could help someone understand their financials, but it's kind of like what we said before. It's like numbers don't lie, but the truth is hard to see. And the reality is that without what I love about Auxilium, and I love that we have teamed up this way, is because the reality is that when I come in, I think each one of our, what we consider to be a pillar of our service offering, is that it's like one without the rest of them is always going to be limited.
Right.
But when I come in and with the financial side, and then you come in with the operations and Pete, strategy and execution, and Pete, it comes in with, operations and strategy, execution, like, wow, now we can do a lot of wonderful things and relieve that business owner from that trouble of getting out of the business and get them back working on it in a way that's just the way it should be.
Yeah, reflect back to something we heard recently, where in just an open cup of coffee conversation we had, the owner of the business said, I would really love to have a second set of eyes.
Yes.
So think about this idea of getting drawn into managing the day-to-day and keeping just everything rolling and humming and working along. You're constantly trying to touch every point.
Right.
By working alongside and with that business owner as the second set of eyes and as someone to bounce ideas off of and someone to think through and work through the what if and the outcome from the what if allows that business owner to pull back and get a more holistic view or a macro level view of what's going on. And when they can see things at a broader macro level, they can start to say, okay, the performance indicators that we've seen of, on your side of the fence, the cash flow analysis. What's the gap between point A and point B, and how are we managing through cash flow, or how are we dealing with profitability? When you're in it in the day-to-day, and it's just everything that you're staring at, and you're looking at the numbers every day, you want to be able to pull back and say, what does this mean?
Yeah.
What's that second set of eyes provide? Brainstorming around a way to improve that, and then turning the dials just a little bit in each area of their business with the underpinnings of financial health and well-being, getting that taken care of first, and then stepping into operational efficiency, operational execution, and then looking into sales and marketing around, all right, are we driving profitable sales to the right customers that can do this, and having a financial conversation that tie into the sales conversation. It all weaves together into, I don't want to say a tapestry, but it really is. When you're looking at it very closely, all you're seeing is what's right in front of you. But when you can pull back and look at it more holistically, you can start to say then, from where we are to where we're going to go, what's an appropriate pathway to take?
It's funny. Carrying on the talking about different pathways, and I talk about that no man's land, but it's like the desert.
It is.
Getting from the, within that 1 to 2 million and crossing the desert, getting over to where you're at the 10 or $15 million in total revenue, it becomes like this desert to get through it because there's so many pitfalls, and the cash flow can dry up so fast, and it's what the idea of what you're saying is kind of like, how do you get through the desert? Right. And it's like you really want to build out, whether it's a caravan with air conditioning and water coolers, or whether it's getting into the airplane and flying over the desert. Doesn't matter. You've got to get from point A to point B, and if you got to decide how you're going to travel there. And the failure point for most business owners comes in where it's always, it's a lot of times it's a lack of cash flow, but that can have symptoms all over the place, right? But it's the idea that it's that lack of cash flow is the desert environment. And we've got to get through it. And it's like you can bring in the right resources, and it's like flying a plane. You can bring in one resource, and it's like a caravan of camels. And you bring in a little bit more resources, and it's like now you can travel in at least style in over the desert. But my goal is always like, if we can figure out how to get you on the plane, let's just go over there.
Well, and that brings a great point in circling back to kind of what does this mean when we can bring a team in to work part-time for your business and for you. You think about a lot of ways that folks are going to come in. They're going to parachute in a resource and say, we need to fix this.
Right.
And all you're looking at is
very
fixing
myopic,
this.
very small-minded, effort, so to speak.
It is. And you mentioned this idea of I've gone from $1 million to $3 million, and then I get to 5, and then I get to 8 or 9 or 10. And they look back and say, I am generating 3 times the cash flow in my business. Yet at the end of the year, I'm taking home less.
Right.
That actually is a common theme that we see. You go through the maturity stage from startup to launch to growth. And then through growth and expansion, it's like, I'm doing more business than I ever thought I would do, but I'm not taking home everything I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a common theme. But if you're that man on that island and you're only looking at your island, you've not received the validation that, you're not alone in that.
Right.
And that journey that you're going through and working with our clients, helping them see that you're going to get through that phase and that chapter in this book that we're writing. But it's thinking about what does the next chapter look like and building a plan. And the thing about a fractional executive team coming along with you is we're not dropping off a roadmap or a business plan or this is what you need to do and saying, let me know how it goes.
Right. Good luck with that. Here you go.
Good luck with that.
Here's all of our findings.
Right.
You have a problem here, 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 and here, and here. Good luck.
Good luck. Go forth and prosper and let me know how it works.
I actually get a lot of questions about that. They say, oh, well, great, you're going to tell me what's wrong, and then I have to go and do it.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well,
And we really take a look at what's possible.
Right.
And think about the positive side of the conversation of this is where you want to go and here are some things that you could do. And by bringing the team in with all the disciplines around operations, sales, marketing, finance, team, and talent, and staying through that through the execution phase in a very affordable fractional time allows you to have the success rate that you desire with the outcomes that are capable.
So you're saying that if during the initial phases of the relationship, the engagement with the business, you guys actually find the hot zone, you find the pivot points, the places things can be changed, but then you actually help execute that. Is that the difference between you and a typical consultant?
It is exactly the difference. A consultant will go through and do a fantastic job of analyzing your current situation, come back and build a strategy, share with you what that strategy is, and then allow you to work through that. What we found over the last 20 years of doing consulting around deployment with technology and deployment around operations is all of the great ideas are there, but 3 months after the engagement, you end up starting to fragment the execution plan.
Sure.
And everybody that was involved with the execution plan said, I know what my role is in this, but you're not staying on the same page as a team with the check steps and validations and, for lack of a better term, staying inside the roadmap that was designed, because so many times folks start to take tangents from that.
Right.
And without having the holistic view towards deployment and execution and check steps along the way.
Yeah.
When things go off the rails, you don't know how to bring it back.
So
then you hire another consultant to come in and say, well, how do I bring it back to, point
yeah,
A?
you end up in the
In the circle.
Right. So but I've heard you say it, and of course I know this because it's like the host is also part of the team. But the idea being that when we come in and we're interacting once a week with the team, and we're in there to be part of the daily in and out and make sure things are getting executed correctly. It's not like we're just there one day a week. It's
right.
Explain really what that engagement looks like
that,
outside of that time.
Yeah, the engagement with the small business owner is we are in that office working with that team and working on site to really get into the culture of the business, the team of the business, and the vision of the owner. And we're there on site one day a week. But during the other days of the week, we're checking back in. We're having the conversations. We're able to be brought into other conversations and other things to where they could reach out to us and say, here's something that came up. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What would you do? What advice do you have? Or we find that there's some more information that came in on, really we look at things, what are we trying to accomplish this week and this month? What is that foundational layer?
Right.
What are we doing around a plan for this? And checking in and working through and being accessible the rest of the week. Just because we're on site one day a week doesn't mean we're not accessible for the remainder of the week. And we often have, phone calls in the morning, conference calls in the evening, to kind of check in and walk through the journey. Because the key success factor with us is we're there for the whole journey. Right. We're not dropping in and disappearing.
Does that have you seen that before, Lynn? This model, is this new to you?
It is new because my experience really has been looking in the past has been looking at larger companies, and they have their CFO and they have their COO and they have their VP of marketing, and each of those titles has this team beneath them.
Right.
And so the fractional I had never even heard of before, but our business at Killingsworth Spencer is with small business owners, and like you said right off the bat, you cannot afford 100, 200,000, 250,000 person to take on one of those roles, let alone all of those roles.
Right.
And it's so important to the success and health of the business to have those roles. I mean, they're not the income producers. You are, but you can't be out there producing and making income if you got to step back and take on those roles.
And that's what makes that zone of, that's what makes that time period of that $1 to $10 million to $15 million range so troubling, is because the owner is trying to get away from being the sole business operations, HR, and all that stuff, but they also need to make sure they're producing the income at the same time. And so it's just, you've got to start to delegate during that time period, and you try to hire people in who really don't have the capacity to do things. It's kind of like having your office admin. You're paying them somewhere between $12 to $20 an hour, and you're asking them to produce a business plan. It's like it's not going to happen. Like, there's just no. It's not even fair to ask these people to try to produce something that is so critical to the business, which is why it's just easier to come and find the right talent. Then you get into affordability.
Right. So you look at the acumen. Office managers, I think, are the backbone of so many organizations.
Absolutely.
And they do that in the folks that are the accounting team, where they're doing receivables and payables, do that extremely well.
Right.
But there's this divide, where each role in a manager level within an organization, whether it's $1 million company or $5 million company, are doing well within their area, but they don't cross-pollinate well, and they don't have necessarily the background or skills to take what's done between the owner of the company and the day-to-day execution within those buckets.
And what's even stranger is that you could have a great idea in one silo, right? And say we're gonna do this, but then that has a ripple effect on other things. It's like in government, you can't just say let's just do this, because there's so many other interested parties or so many other things that are involved that you can't just do something that seems to be one way. But in business, the reason why I love what we've done, and even my original vision before I met you guys, was that you need your professionals, these people, whether they're part of your team or just even the marketing person that may be outsourced, they need to just join together in a boardroom every so often, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that one decision doesn't ripple into another.
Right.
I always talk about it as being kind of like a communication system between marketing, financial, and operations. Like, if you don't have the financials explaining how the marketing is working or not working, then you'll never know if your dollars over here are even being used correctly, right? And that's just one small item of ripple effect on everything else. Everything's got to be coordinated to what I call the airplane over the desert ride.
Yes, and that coordination and communication comes down to managing expectations and managing outcomes. And for someone who has a very strong sales background, may not know what the impact is within operations or the guys in logistics when they're trying to get the product out the door or get something delivered to a client. They don't know that when they do one thing, it could actually add 3 things on the plate for somebody else.
Right.
They don't think through that. It's usually not known, and they don't have the situational and awareness to say, if we do this, what does this mean for the other areas of the business?
Right.
And for the owner of the business, if we tweak this area, what does the outcome of that mean for profitability, for cash flow, for personal income at the end of the year?
I love this one. It's like, we've got to hire someone. We just have to do it. Right. But then if you were to forecast the cash flow after hiring that person, you're going to see that all of a sudden, 9 months down the road, you've got negative cash flow, and now you're struggling to pay all your payroll. So it's like, you really have to take things as a coordinated whole, which is why I love this model where we can come together with the owner and it being like, it's not all weighing on one person's shoulders.
Right.
It's that the shoulder weight is distributed among a leadership team that is invested in the business's success, not because they bought some coaching platform or
Right.
a book and a model of book that's going to walk them through how to set goals and achieve them. This is like, get your hands dirty and get in and don't miss things.
Right.
I mean, how often can you work with a consultant and they just don't see everything? How could they? Right? But for us to be involved in the day-to-day, on that level is what kind of sets us apart.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So think about this. When you do have someone who is a consultant or is a coach, they do fantastic work and they have great expertise in the area in which they work. But typically they work off a plan or a model or a structure that comes from one thing. And you try and take the external resource being the business owner and fit the business owner into that model or into that plan.
Right.
So it's the idea of, well, I've got a silver bullet and I've got a silver bullet for everything. Well, no, that's what we found, is that there is no silver bullet.
Right.
But there is an area of acumen, common sense, the macro level interwoven view of how do all these things work together. And by being able to individualize that and work that plan on a regular basis with the business owner, actually comes to drive quicker outcomes.
Right.
With more predictable planning for what does this mean in year 2, 3, and 4. Because when you're going through growth phase, you see all the different things changing in your business.
Right.
Your margins change, your cost of customer acquisition changes, your sales strategy changes. Oh my gosh, the industry just changed around me, and how do I adapt
Quickly
to those changes? And you're trying to take it from your standpoint, or you hire somebody that has a strategy, around that, and they fit that into everybody. Well, if you don't individualize everything for that small business owner, you try and fit it in, and it's the square peg and round hole.
Right.
This comes to the custom design of what's right for you and your business around your personal goals and your business goals. And that's an area we talk a lot about is when we get in with the business owner, is kind of, what's your journey to get to right where you are? How's that going for you?
Right.
What's your personal vision? What's your professional vision? What goals would you like to achieve, and what's your plan? Do you want to think about growing the company to merge with someone else? Do you want to look at building up your team so that they can take it on? Or do you want to be able to put a resource in place and generate an income stream for you so that you can stay involved but not in the day-to-day in your kind of fourth quarter of what you want to do?
You're talking about exit strategy.
It is
now.
exit strategy. And
Right.
it's right understanding what is their vision, what is their goal,
Right.
what would they want to get out of this engagement?
The reality, too, is that, trying to figure out that exit strategy, it's all about having options. So often a business owner gets pushed into having to make a choice between bad and not so bad.
Right.
And so it's like really developing developing a set of goals and objectives and bringing on the right resources so that they have options.
Right.
I mean, that's really the key to anybody's retirement, is to not be stuck doing something they don't want to do. I mean,
Right.
how often do we talk to a business owner who has a big exit strategy, but when you walk in, you start to really look at things, you realize that they don't have all the options they thought they did.
Right.
And the reality is that if we have the time to work with them, we can help develop those exit strategies on their terms, as opposed to having to do some sort of fire sale.
Right. And that planning earlier for the game plan, it doesn't happen at the beginning of the game. It doesn't happen at halftime. It doesn't happen, in the 2-minute warning when you're coming in towards, what are you doing? When you can have a well thought through life cycle with the ability to adapt and keep your options open during that, helps that business owner to think about when they get to that final stage. We'd love to be right there with them as they go through this, with creating the most value for their company and the most vision for themselves of, I would love to be able to take this and have my kids come into the business.
Right.
Or I would like to stay involved, but I don't want to do every day, but I want to still be in the game. And we can help build that roadmap and that plan. It's really what is your rolling blueprint?
Sure. Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
What I want to do is just kind of wrap us up in a way that leaves the listener with really something to walk away with. And, Lynn, you talked a little bit about how not a whole lot of people understand this model even exists.
Yeah, I had not even heard of it prior to meeting you.
Yeah.
But I knew that our clients needed it, and they would lean on me for that type of advice. And I'm wearing, my own hats at my office,
Right.
and I didn't have the time for that.
What are some of
Nor the expertise just to quickly go into somebody's business as you guys do.
Yeah.
It's not just, I do very well as CFO for Killingsworth Spencer, but I'm in it 40 hours, 60,
Right.
70 hours a
60
week. And you guys have that expertise where you can do that in a much shorter time frame because you're trained to look at things differently. And I think about back in the 90s, I was in HR, and I was in banking in HR we had 26 branches, and our HR team was 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the CFOs and controllers team was another 8 people. And those all had vital roles to the health of the business. And to think that, 2 or 3 people can come in and grab all those teams and take a small business and help them to get to that next stage where they can hire their own full-time team
Right.
and have their full-time, it's a great concept.
Now, what do you think some of the objections are out there? Do you think you have some off the top of your head that people may experience when they hear about this model first off?
I would imagine just bringing in somebody new. How do I know this person? How do I let go, really? That's a big one.
And that how do I let go? So many small business owners really trust their capability to do everything. Mm-hmm. But when you get drawn into doing everything, trust is built on a relationship, and it's built on a perception of value and a shared idea of how we can do this together. And when you look at this, it is trust built over time.
Right.
And we realize that, we see that when you bring in Auxilium, we view it as we're being hired by you to work for you.
Right.
And that's, right there. You can bring us in and we build value throughout the time, but it's meant to be, as long as we're helping you achieve your goals and you're getting the value that you want out of this, we typically stick in for the long haul.
And the reality too is that you're right about that, Lynn, and that they say, how can I let go of this? But Auxilium is the perfect experiment in beginning to let go. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is that, it's the way I understand it and the way we do things is that we're not contractual. So it's a month by month. We earn that opportunity every month. But here's the kicker is that we're also our model doesn't depend upon an equity share. So we're literally, the part-time employee setup, but we come with decades of experience. And so the power of that is that someone can begin to let go in an environment that they could easily pull control back if it came to that, which it shouldn't. But the idea being that it's an opportunity to begin to grow as a leader.
Think about this as well. It's not necessarily letting go, but releasing a few of those things. And when we find the greatest success with the small business owner is when they truly do start referring to us as their business partner. We're a non-equity business partner for these guys. But as well, when we can see them sit back and take a deep breath and this sense of relief that comes from
weight
off
the shoulders.
I have someone else standing with me on this island that I'm on.
Yeah.
That's helping me carry the load, helping me achieve all of the things that I'm really wanting to achieve and know I'm capable of achieving. But when I get pulled into the day-to-day, I can't go do what I want to do. We see 30 to 60 days in that there's this sense of relief of, I know that you've got this with me.
Right.
And that's what we deem success is. We are with you and for you, and in that, our view of success is when you achieve your personal goals and your business goals and find that I can take a deep breath and I can go on vacation now without worrying about what's happening back at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
I can go home at night and actually put things down for a little while and enjoy that time with my family.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever hear from family members?
We do, and we actually involve them. We'll sit down with the spouse of a business owner and kind of have their understanding of, we're not here taking over, we're just here to help.
Yeah.
And when we see that, I had one family member who actually was working for the company. She said, wow, you're actually going to be able to help keep, him or her doing what they do best,
Mm-hmm.
and start to take some of that off their plate so that I can enjoy that.
Yeah, getting back to the quality family time. If you're not getting enough of that, it's about saying no to the working vacation, and being able to be present because you don't have all that weight just driving the background noise of your brain, because you finally do have that support system.
That's success.
Yeah, that's powerful. Steve, share with us a little bit, if somebody was wanting to explore this opportunity, what's the best way for them to reach out to you directly? I mean, they have my information, but...
Right. So through our social media, whether it's LinkedIn or our webpage, our emails, we'll be able to have them up and a link to this. Reaching out to you personally, reaching out to me personally through the website or our emails, which are published up on the site, and the team at auxilium.com.
Okay,
email
so it is team at Auxilium
Associates.com.
And real quick, what does this Auxilium even mean?
Great question. And with that, when Pete and I were going through how do we name and how do we brand our company, we said, what do most small business owners want? A little help and a little assistance. And we actually started going back and said, okay, what's Latin for help or assistance? And Auxilium came up. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then we worked through, Auxilium and then linking in Associates. We're here as a team.
This isn't it also a name for a Roman military unit?
It does have, when you look at the Latin derivation and where you take auxilium, it can be brought into a team or a garrison.
Yes, and I really like that when I started really digesting what the name meant. Is it's not only are we there to be that help and that guide, but we're also there to protect, defend, and even attack for the business is a big part of it.
It is. Thank you so much.
Great name.
Lynn, a lot of business owners who are listening, we've by now we're well past tax season, but if tax season for you guys doesn't just exist through the first part of the year, it's really about all year long planning. Mm-hmm. It's about getting involved and having those tax planning and strategy sessions with you guys throughout the year so that at the end of the year, they're not struggling to figure out what to do right. There's a lot of opportunities missed for business owners if they don't do this kind of planning throughout the year. Tell us really quickly, how can they reach out to you and set up a time to meet and to get started with Killingsworth Spencer CPA?
Well, you can go on our website, which is www.killingsworthspencerllc.com, and fill out the info piece, and it'll come directly to me. Or you can call 770-552-8286, and ask for me, and I'll take care of you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Of course, I'm Corbin Cook with SMB Strategy Consultants and Auxilium Associates. You can reach me at 404-783-3305. I'm your cash flow and profitability expert. Have a great week. We look forward to seeing you next time.